Welcome back to Ringside. We're live tonight in the northeast of England at Darlington, to be precise, and we'll be at Ringside in a moment or so. But first, let's take a look at one of our fighters tonight, 25-year-old Corrie, who we mentioned the other side of the break, another young boxer from South Africa. He's tipped as one of their best heavyweight prospects. 5 of his 9 wins have come in the first round, and to date, 7 knockouts. Not too many fights for a 25-year-old, but he's good, this boy. We'll hear from his trainer in a moment or so.
Corrie's got 3 strong points, you know. Corrie is a southpaw, you know, which makes him very awkward for his opponents. Another thing is a strong point for Corrie, he's a good mover. He's a thinker, he's got a boxing brain, he moves well in the ring. And his strongest point is Corrie is a tremendous puncher, you know. Corrie is a very cool type of person, you know. He's a very relaxed person. He's a very shy type of person. But when he starts punching, if his opponent hits him, then they're in trouble, you know, because then Corrie will start throwing the heavy punches. I'm not very happy with the opponent they gave us for this fight. I like a good boxer, but Steve G has lost a lot of his last couple of fights, but he lost a lot of fights, but he's got more wins than Corrie. Corrie's only got 9 wins. I think G has got about 20 wins or 27 wins, something like that. And he had 47 fights, which makes him a very experienced fighter, you know. So we're expecting a tough fight from Steve G.
Steve G, I don't know nothing about him. All that I know is that about him 47, 46 fights. So, I mean, he's got a lot of experience. I hope I win on points or something like that, but I must win. It's good for me.
Corrie Sanders, who doesn't look the biggest heavyweight, Gary?
No, but I noticed that they said he was a southpaw. In fact, a southpaw has never won the world heavyweight title. And if he's as good as his trainers just said, if he's a good southpaw with a good boxing brain and can actually punch, then I think you could see a star in the making. In
case there's anybody with us tonight who doesn't understand what a southpaw is, just briefly explain it for us. He leads...
Well, I've been trying to find it out myself for years myself now. A southpaw actually leads with his right hand, yes. And that's his right hand he uses as his jab, and his left hand his power punch. Whereas normally, like the orthodox boxers, they use the left hand as a lead punch and the right hand's their major punch.
So you don't come up against so many, and that's why an orthodox fighter doesn't like fighting a southpaw.
No, it's always very awkward to fight southpaws.
Well, G, as we heard, has definitely got plenty of experience. Let's just show you Steve's record. He's lost his last 18 fights, I have to point out, but he has rarely been stopped. And let's hope that tonight, perhaps his luck will change. Gary, as you said earlier, you fought this man, and there he is in the red trunks. You fought this man on 2 occasions.
Yes, twice. Both times stopping him on a cut high. Which that means that he was able to absorb all the punishment that I was giving him, take all the punches, and he's fought a lot of good punches and taken them the distance. Now I've seen Steve's opponent, I think it could be a little bit of a struggle for him if this guy's got this sort of a record. He'll obviously be able to really outbox Steve G by some distance.
But you look at Sanders has had, what, 9 fights, Steve G has had 47 fights. There's a wealth of experience that G has got that maybe Sanders hasn't yet.
Yeah, but sometimes experience doesn't actually stand for that much unless you can actually fight well, because you've got a younger, stronger, more ambitious and determined person against someone who is older, had a few more, and is not that bothered.
Right, well, let's have a look at some boxing then. I think we've set it up well for you. Remind you of your commentators. For German and Austrian viewers, it's Hans-Joachim Rauschenbach. For our viewers in Holland, Fred Royers and Ian Dark, and the former IBF cruiserweight champion Glenn McCrory are waiting for English-speaking viewers. Gentlemen, welcome again.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Gary. Welcome to the Darlington Dolphin Centre. And as you were saying, we're wondering if we're about to see a heavyweight star in the making here in this South African Corrie Sanders. He started impressively enough, and he should do a job here on Steve G, although G can be pretty durable despite that long losing streak. Let's get the ring announcements now.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. On behalf of promoters John Spenceley and Cedric Kushner, welcome to an evening of professional boxing at the Dolphin Centre, Darlington. we extend a special welcome to viewers worldwide on B-Sky B. Your officials this evening are all appointed by the British Boxing Board of Control. Your first contest this evening is a heavyweight contest of 8 3-minute rounds between, introducing in the blue corner, wearing the claret trunks from Birmingham, Steve G. And in the red corner, wearing the red and white trunks from Pretoria, South Africa, Corrie Sanders. At the weigh-in earlier today, G scaled 15 stone 11 pounds, Sanders 15 stone 7.5 pounds. Your officials for this contest, the timekeeper Mr. Albert Kelleher, the referee Mr. Fred Potter.
Well, we've heard that this Sanders, who comes from near Pretoria in South Africa with the striped shorts there, is a big puncher. 5 wins in the first round, so you better not blink here because this could be quick. G on this losing streak of 18 fights, which stretches back incredibly to 1983. It would be a sensation if he upset the prospect here, Glenn.
It would be. I can't see that. The South Africans talk very well about Corrie Sanders, but it'll be interesting to see what he can do with G. Can he stop him? I think that's the main question.
Well, he caught G with just a little right there, right in the opening exchanges. Sanders, as you can see, a southpaw, as Gary Mason was explaining, leading with the right hand. A lot of boxers find that hard to cope with. G really has been not much more than a survivor in his fights. He's quite knowing, he can look after himself, but it has to be said, he is a habitual loser. Sanders unbeaten in 9 fights, and he'll be looking for the knockout here, no question about it. G has been in with a lot of name fighters, losing to them. Gary Mason a couple of times, Hugh Roy Currie, Noel Corliss, Billy Aird, Derek Williams. But way back in 1983 since that last win. How good is Sanders? It'll be interesting to get this first glimpse of him on British soil. First impressions, Glenn?
Well, he stands quite well. I think he should maybe give G a little bit more respect now. He's got his hands very low, and I think if G was a little more of a dangerous puncher, he would have to be very careful about that. But very relaxed. He hasn't really got any sort of good shots on, just a flick and jab at the minute, so it's very hard to tell how well his punching power is.
Of course, the big South African heavyweight hope of the moment is Pierre Kurtzer, recently seen on this channel, who's on his way up the world rankings. And we also saw Johnny Duplooy rather unimpressively in Italy the other week. Sanders at the embryonic stage of his career, only 9 fights. That was a good shot to the body from him. Holds his gloves pretty low, doesn't he?
Very low. Against somebody who can punch, who's a snaggy puncher, he would probably find a little bit of trouble. Whether he doesn't have that much respect for G because of his record, but that's a dangerous thing to do with fighters.
Weighs 15.5 stone to Sanders. That's about the weight that Mike Tyson weighs, but at this stage you'd have to say similarities end there.
I would agree with that. I think at the minute the only thing he's shown is a pretty good body shot, which he's landed with both hands, but he hasn't really unloaded with the big straight left yet.
Sanders with his gloves almost arrogantly low, as if he has no fears about G at all. He's had much the best of this opening round, but in truth it's been fairly quiet, not exactly what you'd call action-packed. G there getting a little more ambitious, landing the left right at the end of the round, keeping himself out of trouble in the main. Again the left from G, getting home. So end of the first round, pretty quiet. Sanders, no doubt about it, in control of things at the moment.
Entdecken Sie den edelsten, den kostbarsten, den besten Weinbrand, den es je von Maria Kron gab. Maria Kron Premium, der beste von Maria Kron.
Big wheels! That's awesome! That's crazy! That's out of sight! Monster trucks! Formula One motorbike. And
round 2.
Welcome back to Darlington, second round of this 8-round heavyweight fight. Corrie Sanders, the South African prospect in the striped shorts, up against Steve G, whose record reads 116, lost 27, drawn 2. So he really is very much a trial horse, to put it kindly.
Sanders, he spent this first round having a look at you. I think now if he's as good as the South African C is, it's time to pick up the work and start, putting some big shots in.
Sanders, who's trained by the former world welterweight prospect from South Africa, Harold Volbrecht. Volbrecht, by the way, is split up now with Caesar Makatini, who we'll see in the title fight later on. Good body shot again there from Sanders. Just these 9 fights so far, so he's probably been completely untested at this early stage of his career.
That's right. I think the 9 wins, you can't draw too much in that, because most of his fighting has been done in South Africa against, not very highly regarded opponents. So, we can't read too much into that. But he's got a good, a good stage now to really show that he can punch, because not many people put Steve G away.
Now, Volbrecht says that Sanders is a tremendous puncher. He hasn't shown that yet. He's dug in some useful shots to the body. Looks as if he's trying to bring G's gloves down and then maybe thump home the head punches.
His jab is not that good a jab for a southpaw jab. It's very, he brings it from low down, and it's pity-patty stuff. It's not a good solid jab. And the straight left, at the minute, he hasn't thrown with any sort of authority. It's been very slow. And as you said, his best shots have been his hooks to the body. That's the only time he sort of leans in, as you see there. He leans in and really tries to put a bit of weight behind him.
Doesn't seem to have found his timing yet, and just looking at him, he doesn't really look in tip-top condition, does he? A bit of flab around him, Sanders.
He has a funny development for a big man. He doesn't have a big chest, a big chest muscle. He doesn't look that sort of strong upper body. So, I'll be surprised. Mike Tyson, them very big upper body, Thomas Hearns, big punches. But I'll be surprised if he is that big a puncher with the upper body development that he has.
Now G getting his gloves up, showing how he's managed to survive a few fights over the years, but he's starting to breathe heavier now. He's feeling the effects of these body attacks. You can see some of those punches coming in there below those arms into the rib cage. That red marking on the skin where they've been landing around the ribs. There's another one and another one. So second round into the Corrie Sanders corner we go. He did step up a gear towards the end of that round, didn't he, Glenn?
He stepped up and started again, all body shots. He seems to favour them sort of punches, which with his height you wouldn't think so. But he hasn't shown that much for for 25-year-old. He's got a very good record, 9 fights, 7 KOs. But against this sort of fight, you'd think he'd be starting to put the likes of Steve J away.
In his last fight, he was taken the full distance by the American Steve Zuski at Biloxi in Mississippi. That was over 8 rounds. G, I'll be surprised if he lasts the full distance. He has many times in the past. There he is. He's just working a little bit underneath that left eye of his, but he was breathing very, very heavily towards the end of that round.
He was quite fair. I think the body shots that got through took a little bit out of him.
Second round 3.
Referee Fred Potter making them wait until the bell. Sanders, it's hard to say just how motivated he might be for a fight like this. He may have seen G's long losing record, and he may not be up for the fight, as boxers like to say, but he ought to be really at this stage of his career up for every fight.
I think so, especially when he's travelling abroad. You don't know really what to expect. You cannot read too much into a record, so I think he should really be going for it and want to put a good show on. But at this moment, he's pretty content just to build up a few points and try and do something to the body.
Has to be said, so far G is not providing the biggest and most mountainous test that he will ever have to face.
Well, that's right. G is pretty much a survivor. I mean, he's just started to throw a couple of shots, which look, you know, pretty good right hands to the body. And you think a guy who's lost 18 fights would just sort of say, you know, it's time in his career just to really give it a go. And you know, I'd like to see him do that, just to see what he could do.
His last win, by the way, was against Winston Allen, who was one of Frank Bruno's victims, I seem to remember. But you need a fairly long memory. I had to go into the record books to find out G's last win. Still Sanders dominating things, just poking out his jab in a token sort of way and looking for the body attack. Hard to assess this South African on this kind of evidence.
To me, he still looks rather amateurish. I don't know what amateur experience he has, but he still holds himself and throws his shots a little bit amateurish. He's very straight up, and at this moment he doesn't look like the type of puncher that they're talking about. Well, maybe he has a surprise up his sleeve.
Well, he was 4 times the South African amateur champion, so he was an amateur a fair time, and he still does seem to have a little bit of the amateur ways about him. Looks pretty open. But this is almost really like shooting practice, isn't it?
That's right, it's target practice. But his shots are building up the points, you know, nice little combinations. He put about 4 or 5 shots together, but there wasn't anything in any of them. You know, very amateur short punches.
So Sanders having things much his own way, rather as we expected against Birmingham Steve G. But so far, not really impressing us as a man who's going to do big things. Caught by a right there by G. There goes the bell to end the 3rd round. Sanders very much in control. Will it continue that way? Find out in a moment.
Entdecken Sie Odol mit 3, die Dreifachprophylaxe. Weiß gegen Karies, Rot gegen Parodontose, Blau gegen Zahnsteinneubildung. Die Dreifachprophylaxe in einer Zahncreme.
Odol mit 3 bietet meiner Familie und mir die komplette Vorsorge in einer Zahncreme.
Odol mit 3, die Dreifachprophylaxe.
The European Open Snooker Championship has attracted the world's greatest players to Rotterdam to battle for the £35,000 first prize. 7 days of Super Snooker breaks off midnight on Tuesday.
4th round, the boxers very sportingly touching gloves at the start of every round. They had enough trouble in a recent world title fight involving Hector Camacho, getting them to touch gloves at the end of the last round, or beginning of the last round, I should say. Well, we're looking here for Corrie Sanders, the South African in the striped shorts, to maybe step things up a bit and fulfill some of the heady predictions being made about him in South Africa. He's just looked a little bit pedestrian and almost bored by it all so far up against Birmingham Steve G.
The crowd let a big shout out there when G came out and let a few shots go. And I think really, you know, against this sort of opponent, why not? You know, he should commit himself and go for it. You know, Sanders hasn't really shown anything to hurt him yet, so he should have a little bit more devil and go for it. He's very pit-pat, you know, nice for points, build up lots of points, but I mean, he's streets ahead already. But people against this sort of opponent, people want to see him put him away.
Well, it's a very, very negative performance, it has to be said, from Steve G. He's just getting his gloves up, trying to make sure he's not caught with too much and somehow work his way through, but it doesn't provide for the most enthralling entertainment. Don't blame him at all for looking after his health in there. Oh, he's caught by that though. Now he's in trouble on the ropes. Caught by that left. He's having to cover up. A lot of those punches are hitting the gloves, and the referee may have to step in here. G does go down, and I'll be surprised if we see any more action. I don't think really he wants to take too much more of that. Suddenly caught by that left hand, and now Sanders knows he can finish the job, and the referee's seen enough. and so have we all. Referee Fred Potter steps in the 4th round, and Corrie Sanders clocks up victory number 10, and that's the 8th knockout or stoppage on his record. He wasn't that impressive, in truth, and for Steve G, it was defeat number 19 in a row.
Steve G's just pointed his stomach there. I think one of the early body shots started that and hurt him quite a bit. But I wasn't. I agree with you. I wasn't that impressed with Sanders. He's 25, and I think he should be doing a little bit, more. It should be a little better than he is at this point.
Maybe he can step up on this performance. There was the punch that ended it. That left, that was a good shot. It was the best one he produced from the locker all night, after really going through the motions a little bit in the 3rd round. Some decent body shots as well. This is the left. G was surviving quite capably up till then. That sent him reeling backwards. The following attack forced the eventual stoppage, and Sanders wins again, but the big tests lie ahead, and maybe he'll rise to that kind of challenge in the future.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 65 seconds of the 4th round, the referee stops the contest, G being in no condition to continue. The winner, Corrie Sanders.
Corrie Sanders puts up another win on his record. But Steve G has probably got to the stage, really, where he has to consider what his future may hold in boxing. There is a limit to how long you can go on going around the small halls, appearing on undercards, being a trial horse, picking up your money, but in the end it can't be too much good for his pride or indeed his health. So just to recap that result here on the undercard.